What's going on, filmmakers, and welcome to my second episode of how I filmed 3 sex awareness campaigns in a single day. On my previous video, I showed you how I filmed the first campaign and all of the difficulties and challenges we had on that one. Now I'm going to show you what difficulties we had on the second campaign because they are not fun. So I filmed the first campaign on the Dji Ronin 4D in ProRes HQ8K, which resulted in a ton of data, which also meant 1 terabyte of SSD for the Ronin 4D was not enough. And guess what? I brought lights, cameras, lenses, cables, everything you can think of except my laptop and hard drives. And I didn't have an SSD spare for the Ronin 4D. Because coming from the Sony FX3, a terabyte of footage would hold me like 2 weeks of shooting. And obviously 1 terabyte of footage on the Ronin 4D is not enough. Shouldn't be an issue, right? I'll just go back home and get my laptop and copy the footage, right? Wrong. The location I was at was 35-40 minutes away from my home, and we were getting close to starting the next scene in about 20 minutes. So here's what I did. I called up my wife and I told her to get a laptop and a hard drive that has over 1 terabyte of free storage. And guess what? My wife checked all of my hard drives and none of them had 1 terabyte of free space. I was like, can this day get worse? I was sweating because I was in a situation that looked very bad for my business and for me as a filmmaker, and of course, for my future collaborations with this director. So I asked my wife to delete everything that was older than 1 year and to make free space and come as quickly as possible because we needed the hard drive to copy. But our call for second scene was just 10 minutes away. And so I decided to continue shooting on the Ronin 4D as much as I can. And I had about 10 more minutes, which was really good, but because we managed to get the talking part first. But then I decided to go and shoot on the Sony FX3 and mix the footage up, which turned out better than expected, to be honest. Like, mixing the Sony FX3 with the Ronin 4D is quite a good balance, you know? Even though one is 8K and the other one is 4K, they didn't look that bad and the difference wasn't noticed. And I know what you're thinking now. Why didn't you delete some of the shots that weren't good and make more room on the SSD? And to be honest, I didn't think about that in that situation. But the best part about filmmaking is that 80% of the time is problem solving and the rest 20% is filming, you know? Also, because I switched from Ronin 4D to Sony FX3, I kind of managed to see how both of these cameras compare. So what really stood out with the FX3 was how good the autofocus is. So while filming with the Ronin 4D, I had a few situations where autofocus wouldn't work properly or miss the autofocus completely. So I had to switch to manual focus. But with the Sony FX3, the autofocus is on another level, especially if I compare it with the Ronin 4D. And what's really also impressive is the fact that we shot everything on the FX3 at 50mm f1.2 and the focus was spot on. Now, let's talk a little bit about lighting and how we lit the scene because, like you see, it looks pretty good. So as you see, we filmed the whole thing in a tent that was full of Christmas lights, and we had to block the practical lights for the talking part in order to get the contrast that we wanted. Our actor was lit with a Pavoslim 120C from above, similar to how we lit the girls. We also used a grid in order to control our lighting better. Lighting wise, this scene was the easiest from all of the 3 campaigns, and we didn't have any difficulties rather than the one with the card. Probably the only shot that was more difficult with this scene was the last shot from the scene, which was a little bit more difficult in terms of lighting, but we managed to make it super fast because we used the Forza 300B from inside the tent and placed it behind the girls so we can see their shadows on the tent wall. Then we used the Nanlite Forza 60C from above and make the lighting look more natural, something a little bit like a moonlight. So besides having the issue with the card, this scene was actually really simple and I actually enjoyed filming. In terms of lighting, everything worked amazing. And it's funny how this job is, because you get one thing that works super smooth and then it goes bad in a matter of seconds. And you always have to be prepared for this, because this is filmmaking. Sometimes it works amazing and sometimes it works like shit. But I really like this because not every project and not every day is gonna be the same. And this, I think, is what keeps us motivated and curious about this job. And hopefully you enjoyed this behind the scenes. Even though it was shorter than the previous episode, I hope you got something useful out of this. And make sure you hit that subscribe button so you can see the next episode, because the next one is crazy as well. I'm Alexander Don, and thanks a lot for watching. Peace.